Our story starts on a snowy street, with apartments lined up on both sides of the street. A young man's on the phone talking to someone else about his love life and present relationship with. He's questioning his love for his partner. On the phone, the young man claims he's not certain he's ever had a genuine attraction to his partner. Not since they first met. He says there are different types of love or attraction beyond what's between men and women. He says he'll marry our female lead, that's what Yumin wants. When he thinks on it for a while, he's doing it out of pity, or a sense of duty to her. After all, she basically saved his family way back. In all his conversations, our girl sits in the corner eavesdropping. She's just heard him express his true feelings about her, and it saddens her greatly. The young man says he'll always be there to take care of her, and even ensure he tells her just how much he loves her every day, if that's what she wants. The words hit her hard in her chest. She's overwhelmed by the thought of being to someone who doesn't love her like she loves him. He plans to live the rest of his life that way just to repay her for her kindness. It's a different location. The young man and Yumin are at a coffee shop. Someone gets their order, a special Christmas smoothie. The lady at the counter wishes the customer a Merry Christmas with so much cheer in her voice. Yumin and her boyfriend sit at the extreme, close to the window. Two ladies at a table really close to them discuss loudly about a certain celebrity who's having a scandal. The young man starts up a conversation, calling on Yumin to get her attention. He doesn't take his eye off his tablet while speaking to her. Our girl's eyes are fixated outside the shop. She just looks out the window into the open skies. He asks if she's had time to think about their wedding venue yet. She sighs, speaks to her herself in her heart to be bold. She's about to take a step that'll affect her life moving forward. She's practically fidgeting thinking about her next course of action. Yumin reminds herself exactly how she felt that day she heard him speak on the phone. How sad and depressed she felt hearing him talk about his true feelings. Our girl says she thinks the first venue they'd seen together would have been perfect for their wedding, but she asks if he really wants to marry her. He's surprised to hear her question, but he reassures her that his feelings are unwavering. The young man says he'll be the luckiest man on earth to have her as his beautiful wife. Looking outside still, our girl says he always says the sweetest things. He's so smooth with words you'd have gobbled up every sentence that came flying out of his mouth. That's why she loved him. She had no idea they'd end up this way. He says he's only like this with her. He claims his smooth talking is for her and her alone. He claims he's this way because he loves her dearly and he stretches out his hands to touch hers gently. Our girl isn't taking any of it today. As his hands venture towards hers, she pulls them away. With a really big smile on her face, Yumin says she's sick of him. The young man is Ijan. She desires to put an end to the deceit today. Our girl hopes her words are kind yet cruel enough to hurt him as much as she's hurting right now. Ijan couldn't believe the words that just creeped out of her mouth. The people around take note of the two young supposed lovers. Our girl wraps her arms around her and clenches her fist really hard in anger. She asks him to forget about the wedding. The people around begin to murmur, as they are trying to make sense of the situation, with our female lead and the fine young man sitting across from her. Everyone is feeling awkward. Ijan lays down his tab and takes a serious posture. He asks why she's being this way all of a sudden. Our girl smiles and says it's okay to be honest. She says she's totally out of his league and flicks her hair. Our female lead doesn't stop there. Yumin says she's sick of him, and she can't help how she feels anymore. The ladies closest to them are shocked beyond understanding. Her word prick at their minds with such brutal force. The two people at the counter are mesmerized too. Our girl says they've been dating for 6 years now, and she's had more than enough with him. She hesitates a little but threads on anyway. With a big smile on her face, Yumin asks that they end it now. Has to be the most poetic breakup ever. Few weeks to your wedding, on Christmas Eve, crazy timing from the young lady. Has to be for the best though. Matters of the heart can be so tender and time-sensitive. Don't you think so? Time goes by and it's been 3 months already. The city shines in the sunlight, it's the morning of a working day. A couple walk along the pathway and act all lovey-dovey. The two freak out at the sight of someone walking towards them. It's our female lead and she looks horrid as she drags her things with her. The couple walk around her completely avoiding her. Our girl glances at them. They look like such a loving couple even though they are whispering about her and saying pretty unkind stuff about her. It's so crazy how it's not been too long since she was in the same situation. A lovey-dovey relationship with the man she'd thought she would spend her entire life with. She's genuinely envious of couples just like them. It's interesting her for someone who was badly hurt and disappointed by her ex. You could say she hasn't learned her lesson yet from men. She just stands there and stares at the couple till they disappear out of sight. Flashbacks of her last relationship in her head. Her journey with Asian ended that day at the coffee shop after 6 years of effort. Come to think of it, love is hard work. It's a fact. In the next scene, it's an office setting with workers having their little space to work on their computers. Everyone seems busy clicking and tapping. The door creaks open and our girl announces her arrival. Everyone turns in her direction, and one lady asks why's coming so late on a working day. They are all stunned to see her drag herself into the office looking like a mess. Yumin apologizes for coming late. She says she had to visit the sample room and the market before finding her way down to the office. Everyone sees how exhausted she looks and the lady asks our female lead to drop all the stuff she's pulling along with her and just go lie down for a moment. As she pulls the bag across the room, things fall out the bag, but she doesn't stop to pick anything. Yumin puts the bag down on a chair and agrees to lie down in the break room for a moment. She head there straight away. The ladies at the office all pick up the patterns and samples that fell out our female lead's bag. They are all really worried about our girl. Yumin is turning even more haggard and they are all wondering if she'll be alright. One of them says it's because Yumin works too much, and she's been this way for several months now. In truth, she's been this way ever since her breakup. One of the ladies looks particularly bothered about the situation. In the break room, our girl hears all that they are saying, but she's too tired to actually interfere or anything like that. They are whispering and all, but she hears them anyway. It's pretty peculiar things are this way. Yumin is the CEO here yet she's making them nervous. She touches her head and speaks to herself to pull herself together. Things can't remain this way any longer. After all, she dumped her ex and not the other way round, so it's pretty strange she's yet to recover from it even till now. She has worked so hard over the years to start this company, so she really can't let something like this upset her. She smiles and assures herself that all will be well and attempts to sleep as she shuts her eyes. In few seconds, her eyes flash wide open and she sits up in a dash. What Asian did to her just pisses her off, and she can't let it go so easily. Someone steps into the break room and asks why our girl's not lying down anymore. She's got cups in hand and she asks if Yumin is feeling any better now. Our girl smiles and says she's all right now. The lady says she was really shocked to see our female lead step in the way she did and hands her a cup of hot tea. She says for someone who's got terrible stamina, Yumin really shouldn't over things. The words hit our gear hard, but she receives the cup of tea and appreciates the lady. This lady stares at our female lead as she enjoys her cup of tea. She's really concerned about how our girl will be able to work in her condition. She really needs to stop Yumin from thinking about her ex. It's become her top priority now. An idea drops in her mind. She wastes no time to pop it. The lady invites our girl to hang out with her later in the day if she's not too tired from working today. Yumin is down for it and she asks where they'd be going together. This lady says her friend Seoyoung who does free adverts for their product, is having her birthday party tonight, and she'd love it if Yumin came around to thank her in person, and have fun too. Our girl will need to go home and get changed for the event. She's got that big smile on her face again, and Yumin says she'd love to be there. It's night time and the party is brimming with people and activity. So much chatter all around the place. Our girl and her friend meet up with the birthday girl. They offer their gift and she's so happy to see both of them. Seoyoung asks them to have fun at her party. There's food and drinks all around the place, and she says they should feel free to have anything here. The birthday girl says everyone here is either her friend or acquaintance, so the two shouldn't hesitate to make friends, or start up a conversation with anyone there. Our girl and her friend walk around to get something good to munch on and a nice place to sit. In almost no time, her friend places her hand on her tummy. Seems she's got an upset stomach. The lady excuses herself and Yumin says she'd grab them a table and wait for her to return. Looking around, everyone there was busy streaming or making videos with their phones. Our girl hasn't been to a party in ages, so she's really excited to be here. At the table, she gets some food and she stares all around the place at the people in attendance. Many of the guests at the party are MITube or social media stars. They all look so luxurious too. Our girl gets herself a table and takes a sit. There's a lot of chatter around, but she enjoys the food in front of her. She takes note of someone sitting really close to her. He's here alone, so she decides to start up a conversation. Yumin says hello and asks if the young man is the birthday girl's friend. He doesn't turn in her direction, but he answers her question. He says no. It's pretty awkward now cause of the way he responded. Our girl says she's here because her good friend is a friend of the birthday girl. The young man isn't particularly interested in what she's saying and he gives firm responses, as though he'd like the conversation to just die straight away. Yumin was starting to get annoyed at the fact he's not even turned in her direction all this while, he's practically ignoring her. Finally he does. He turns towards her and asks if she could stop talking to him. He almost swallows his words the very moment their eyes met. Our girl finally sees his face, but she's no longer interested in building a conversation with him, seeing as he's so cold in his responses. In a flash, he leans towards her and has his face super close to hers. Yumin freaks out. He asks if they've met before. She's not at all enjoying this. He'd practically ignored her since, and now his attitude suddenly changed so quickly. Our girl assures him they've never met before. He asks if she's a celebrity, an actress, or a singer by any chance. Our female lead munches on her food and says she's just a normal citizen. She must feel really good seeing, as he's indirectly complimented her looks as he compares her to celebrities. Yumin wonders what's up with this dude. Maybe he's trying to flirt with her or something. She feels he suddenly changed his mind when he saw her face, or maybe he really mistook her for someone else. Thoughts cloud her mind. He's actually a really good-looking young man, and she takes a long hard look at his physical features. A call comes in, it's for the handsome young man. He picks up his cell phone and speaks to the person on the phone. Our girl looks around wondering where her friend was. Juhue had gone to the washroom for several minutes now and Yumin was starting to wonder if her friend wasn't coming. A slamming noise disrupts her thoughts. A chair hit the ground hard and it actually scared her. The young man sitting close to her had suddenly dashed out, rushing towards the closest exit. Our girl wonders where's he's running off to all of a sudden. Maybe he got an urgent call that required his attention. Something piques her interest, staring at him as he leaves, his wallet. It's fallen behind. She picks it up and checks it out to figure out his address, or something so she could hand it over to the young man. She gets his ID from his wallet and runs off trying to catch up with him. She'd followed him out to return his wallet, but he's not where to be found. Not too far off, she stops a bit to catch her breath. That man had ran off in such a hurry she wondered if he'd be okay without his wallet in his possession. She's drained already, so she decides she'll head back to the party and just hand the wallet over to an employee at the event, or something like that. She's breathing heavily. Right in the corner close to her, she hears voices. Sound like two people are arguing about something, and our girl draws closer to hear what's going on. She confirms it's a man's voice and she peeks to get a look at the person because it's a familiar voice. Looking at him from behind, she could tell he's the owner of the wallet, the guy who ran out earlier. There's someone in front of him. She couldn't hear the other person's voice too well, but she guesses it's a woman. The man asks how she found out he was at the party. She says she saw it online on someone's post and made her way here. Resting her back on the wall, Yumin could tell it's an argument between lovers and wonders if she should take her leave. Something stops her in her tracks, a statement the young man just made rubbed off on her the wrong way. He just said he dated the lady in front of him out of pity. Not out of love. These very words had hurt our girl in the past, and she couldn't stand at the side and watch it scar someone else. Not while she was there. Yumin turns in the direction of the couple. The guy says it's not his job to make the lady feel better, and he's practically frustrated with his girlfriend. He says the only way forward is a breakup, and asks her not to be pathetic about it. Yumin is visibly pissed now. She clenches onto the wallet in hand. What is she going to do about it? The girlfriend says she still had faith that their relationship will work out for the better. He might say these things now, but for some reason she says she knows they'll stay together forever. Okay, it's giving a weird and delusional vibe. The guy isn't having any of it. He says he'd have told her loved her and try to make things work, but that was in the past. Now, he's sick of pretending to love her. So harsh. His girlfriend flinches at his words. He says it's been so difficult pretending to love her all this time. He takes it a step further and asks her to appreciate him for giving her a good time over the years. He has this villainous look in his eyes. It comes like a bullet. His wallet flying straight at his head. It whacks him hard on the head. Yep, it's Yumin. She did it out of anger and disgust at the type of man this guy was. To our female lead, the worst kind of lover was someone who lied about being in love and deceived their partner. She threw the wallet so hard, with great precision too. People like this man or her ex who she dated for 6 years just make her sick. Flashback to the time she was folded up in pains hearing all her ex said about her on the phone. He had confessed to never having feelings for her. Never having attraction to her as a woman. For 6 good years of her life, she was hurt so bad at the fact he was really going to say he loved her, and even go through with the marriage just because she saved him all those years ago. It wasn't the best way to repay for real. She never even asked him to do that. Our girl was beyond pissed right now. Clenching her fist, she regrets not going berserk on Asian 3 months ago. The young man takes the wallet off his head and turns in her direction, with eyes raging in anger. He steps closer to her, but she pays no attention to him. All she could think of was the fact she didn't express her anger like this to her ex. If only she did, maybe she'd feel better than she does now. In no time, she jolts back to reality. There's an angry young man standing right in front of her. He looks like he'll devour her in anger right then and there. Now she's questioning herself. Did she just make a terrible mistake? What's going to happen now? Juhue steps out of the washroom and moves around the party ground for a short while in search of our female lead. She sees Yumin afar off at a table discussing with someone. She observes from a distance. Juhue is genuinely surprised to see her friend engaging a young man in a conversation. A blonde-haired guy walks up behind her, and the moment she notices his presence, she's startled. The blondie immediately begins to freak out. He assures her he's not a weirdo. He says he's just looking at his friend from a distance too. Apparently, His friend is the young man with Yumin. Juhue says it's all right and takes a good look at Blondie's facial features. He's good-looking too. She asks if he's really friends with the gentleman at the table. Blondie affirms he is. Wasting no time, Juhue asks if the gentleman at the table is single by any chance. Blondie is stunned by her question, but he answers anyway. He says his friend is very much single. The news delights Juhue so much. She says her friend is also single, and she's got this big smile on her face saying it. Blondie calls her attention. He's blushing hard, but he doesn't back down. He leans closer then says he's single too and asks if they'd be a good fit. Juhue is taken aback by his stunt. So bold. In her head she begins to analyze the situation. Blondie here looks younger than her, so she's skeptical about their situation. Behind them there's a loud slamming noise that draws their attention away from their conversation. People around murmur, trying to make sense of what just happened. The two look surprised cause the origin of the noise was from the position both their friends were seated few seconds ago. Both of their friends had disappeared in the blink of an eye. In the next scene, Yumin is confronted by the angry-looking young man she hit with a wallet earlier. He asks who she was and his menacing tone made her hesitate. He's very pissed and it's visible in his eyes. He asks why she's here and why she followed him from the party. With a shaky voice, our girl says she didn't follow him like a freak, but she came after him for a tangible reason. She's panicking big time, but it's all happening in her head. Yumin is starting to regret her outburst. This guy has such a vulgar mouth, and she's going to be victimized soon if the situation doesn't lighten up. He asks if she filmed or recorded anything she saw or heard from his discussion with the girl putting on a cap behind him. Yumin assures him she did no such thing. The girl behind rushes away from the scene in an attempt to flee whilst the two argue on and on about our female lead's sudden appearance and interruption. The young man isn't happy she came there out of the blue, and he demands to know why she followed him like a rat. Our girl wasn't having any of it. She flipped the tables on him and asks if he saw what she threw at him. He pauses for a second and takes a look at the object in his hand. It's his wallet. It dawns on him that she's just followed him to return his wallet. Yumin yells at him in annoyance. She really didn't like the fact he called her a rat when she came here to return his wallet. That still doesn't explain why she threw it at him with great force directly to the head, but still, her intentions were pure. He lets out a big sigh. Next, he turns around and discovers the young lady had disappeared. Didn't take too long for her to do that. He believes our girl didn't recognize the lady with the cap, so all should be well. Our girl is standing there hoping everything just blows over soon. The situation is strangely uncomfortable for her. The young man admits he'd misunderstood her intentions and apologizes. He says he'd like to appreciate her for returning his wallet and attempts to give her a reward, but our girl turns him down. She's doing her best to avoid eye contact with this stunning beauty of a man. She's hoping he lets it slide so they can all move on with their lives. He points out the fact she returned his wallet in a rather peculiar way. The words hit her hard, as she knows she's just been busted. He asks if she always returns people's items by throwing them at the back of the heads. He fixes his gaze on her. Our girl says she's really not like that, but shamelessly blames him for forcing her hand. She says he made her angry and that's the reason for her action. Well, that's what she would have said if she was bold enough. She couldn't summon up the courage to be straight up honest with the young man, so she decides to apologize and tell a white lie instead. Yumin says she was desperate to return his wallet quickly and apologizes for hurting him, then she lets out a cheerful smile. He could tell she wasn't sorry at all. Our girl attempts to leave and head back to the party since she's apologized already. It's pretty dark around and the young man looks pissed once more. He doesn't want her to walk back all alone to the party, so he says they should head back together. Back at the birthday party, Seo-young appreciates all her guests for coming around and says she'd love to sing them all a song. There's a lot of chatter around, but amidst the chatter, Jihoe and the blondie were getting acquainted. Our girl rushes up to her friend, announcing her return as she approaches Jihoe. Her friend asks where she's been. Yumin hadn't picked her calls, so she assumed our female lead left for home already. Our girl says she'll tell Jihoe all about it once she has a drink, because she's super thirsty at the moment. Blondie calls on his friend, Hyeondo. They all introduce themselves real quick. The two ladies leave their midst to get drinks. Jihoe says they'd be back soon. Once they were few meters away from the men, she asks if anything spicy happened between Yumin and Hyeondo while they were gone. Our girl didn't share the same excitement. She says nothing of that sort happened. Yumin says the guy dropped his wallet and she returned it to him. In truth, a lot of other things happened, but she wasn't about to spill it. Jihoe's expectations were cut shut. Not too far from them, Blondie was also asking what transpired between the two when they disappeared from the gathering. Hyeondo didn't respond to the question, instead he asks a question of his own. He asks if Blondie posted anything on his social media with him in it. Blondie flinches a bit, but confirms that he did in fact post that he came to the party with Hyeondo on social media. On his page, it wasn't a direct picture of his friend he'd intended to post though. He knows quite well that Hyeondo didn't like having his photos taken. He says he only found out that his friend was in the photo by mistake, so he apologizes. It's definitely strange to Blondie, because he's certain Hyeondo doesn't have any social media accounts, so there should be no way he'd know anything about it. That's by the way, his friend says he's leaving the party. Blondie couldn't make any sense of it. If Hyeondo wanted to leave the party, then why did he bother coming back in the first place? Weird, right? He says the restaurant will be closed for a few days for renovation, and suggests they have few drinks before his friend disappears again. The two ladies have drinks in hand now. Our girl laughs with such joy and gladness in her heart. Hyeondo glances in her direction. She has piqued his interest, no doubt about it. He tells Blondie he's not interested in having any drinks and takes his leave. The city was shining bright with lights so late at night. There were vehicles littered across the road, and in one of those vehicles was someone pretty important to our story. The driver calls on Seo-jong. That's her passenger. She asks if the lady still intended to put on the cap and wig disguise any longer. She's the lady from the alley, the lover girl who met up with Hyeondo. She says she got distracted, that's why she hadn't taken it off till now. She puts the cap and wig away and shows her real hair and her beautiful eyes. She's such a cutie. The driver says her encounter with Hyeondo took longer than she'd anticipated, so she's wondering if their talk went well. Seo-jong is some sort of mega model, actress or a pop star. That's her pretty face being displayed on a massive billboard and even at the bus stops just by the walkway. Seo-jong says the young man had said the meanest things to her in their brief meeting. Her driver wonders if those hurtful words really didn't bother her boss. She asks if the boss really didn't think the young man meant all the hurtful things he said to her. Seo-jong says Hyeondo couldn't have meant what he said. If it was anyone else who'd said such things, she would have believed them. She believes deeply in her heart that even now, the young man is waiting for her call even as they speak. Her driver couldn't wrap her head around it. The boss is so sure of herself. She asks what Seo-jong was thinking so hard about earlier that got her so distracted and lost in her own thoughts. The boss thinks on it too. She'd panicked the moment Hyeondo got hit by an object hard across his head. She'd thought it could be one of her haters who'd come to terrorize her. The media or even paparazzi maybe. At the time, she didn't take too long to make her decision to sneak out to avoid any issues. She'd decided she'd give Hyeondo a call later that night. Even as she left, she hesitated a little and turned around to see who it was. Her eyes met our female lead. Just some girl. Not the media, bad press or paparazzi, but she didn't wait to confirm it. She had been thinking about it after leaving. Who was the lady? Was she after Hyeondo and not her? Those questions clouded her mind. She had a grin on her face as she stared into her phone. She tells her driver she wasn't thinking about anything important. In his apartment, Hyeondo sat in the living room taking drinks alone. His hands were shaking as he was drowning in thought. Something was eating him up from within. Sojong's words had pulled him hard so quickly, he practically ran out of the party to meet her after hearing her voice on the phone. He feels so pathetic for his reaction to the young lady's call. In anger, he squeezes the can of beer in hand and spills its content. He thinks about what to do now, staring at his phone. He's thinking about delaying before answering calls on his cell phone, when next she calls to avoid the same response. He wipes off the spillage on the table. Right then and there, his phone vibrates and a notification appears. He's got a new message. In a flash, Hyeondo throws the pack of wipes away and picks up his phone. He's practically yearning for a message from Sojong. His expectation is cut short. It's a message from his friend, Tegan Lee. Blondie was asking him to come back to the restaurant to have drinks with him. He'd successfully confused Hyeondo by sending a text at this hour. Blondie sent something else too. It's a photo he just took. In the photo, he was there, Hyeondo and Yumin all seated at a table having a good time. The young man wastes no time to zoom into our female lead's face in the photo. Apparently, something about her pulls his attention. Maybe it's the fact she threw a wallet at his head, or it's something else. He wonders about it for a while. Who was she? The woman who hit the back of his head with his wallet, sure. But she seemed awfully familiar. He wonders if she was ever one of his customers from before, cause he feels like he could almost remember her. He just couldn't put his finger on it. The thought troubled him big time. He stared at the ceiling and made up his mind to bury it all behind him. He believes he'll never see her again, so there's no reason to ponder on it any longer. Little did he know that fate had other plans for him. A week later, their paths crossed once more. Hyeondo ran into Yumin in public. That's when he realized he was dead wrong. Their story was just beginning. Where does it go from here? Well, stick with me to find out. Enjoying this story so far? Drop a comment showing your interest in a part 2 and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Until next time, adios.